Hi everyone, how are you? I'm Abel and welcome back to my channel. A very good idea for these days is to try something new, and that's why I came up with the idea to create a simple illustration, perfect if you are a beginner as you saw on the title, and something very simple to paint if you are starting to use watercolors for the first time is a tree. That's why for today's video I will show you how I made this illustration of a tree if you want to learn something new. First I will show you the materials I used, and then let's do it. I will use paper, a napkin, a palette, Scotch tape, container with water, a flat tip brush, a fine tip brush, green liquid watercolor, and brown tube watercolor. Remember that the complete list of materials is in the description box. I will start by setting the paper with a little bit of Scotch tape. Next I will prepare this liquid watercolor in a palette and I will apply it with the tip of the brush. Although here I'm just making a little test to see how intense are the color, and since I see it a little light, I will put just a tiny drop of watercolor, but just one drop because I don't want this first layer to be very intense. Once in a while I will apply more watercolor, but I just have to be aware to leave some lighter parts. As soon as this first layer is dry, which shouldn't take that long, I will apply a second layer of watercolor, but this time I will take it directly from the bottle, because I want this to be more saturated. And as you can see over here, I will take a napkin to take off a little of the excess of watercolor in order to have the tip of the brush a little dry, but making sure to still have paint. For this step, I will use the brush practically vertical to the paper, and by the way, the brush that I am using is quite old and the bristles are a little open, but I can use it to my advantage to get the tree effect that I want, and that's to create some leaves. This is going to be the basic process for the whole foliage, by taking the watercolor with a brush and applying it with small touches. And I recommend you to do this without thinking that much where you put the paint, but rather making it with the hand loose and just letting yourself go. Now I will apply one more layer of watercolor, but this time I will put it focusing on the center to create deepness with shadows. I will only use 3 layers of paint this time, but you just have to be aware of how intense your watercolors are or the effect that you want to get. For the next step, I will take a brush with a thin tip to create a little amount of grass in the base of the paper. To make the trunk of the tree, I will use this brown watercolor that comes in a tube because I think this shade of brown is going to look very good with the emerald green of the tree. And just like the green, I will prepare it in the palette with a little amount of water. And to apply it, I will take the same brush I used for the grass and I will start from the bottom to the top, first with a base and then I will split it into 2 branches, but you can make as many branches as you want. And now, in the lighter parts of the tree, I will make some little lines with the brown to create some branches. As final step, I will take a little amount of blue watercolor to give the sky a little touch of color. What do you guys think of this illustration? I can tell you that I wanted to keep this watercolor pretty simple, especially if you are using this kind of materials for the first time. And that's why I decided to paint this tree with the least number of colors, because I think this is a great practice to learn how to work with watercolors. But if you think you are a little more advanced, or if you are more confident, I can suggest you to use a couple of extra colors. For example, you can use different shadows on the leaves with a darker sheen of green, or even with black. In the trunk, perhaps you can apply a darker brown. On the right and on the left, you can use a little amount of white acrylic paint or white ink to create more contrast. And by the way, in the sky right here, at first I wanted to use one of these liquid watercolors, which is blue, but I didn't like how they look on the test, so I used one of these watercolors instead, which are pretty cheap actually, but they had this blue, which I really liked how it looks, especially for the sky. Let me know in the comment section down below if you would try something new like this illustration, and tell me if you have any suggestions to make something in the future. And if you're not subscribed and you would like to be, hit the subscription button, or you can do that on the image that's over here, and turn on the notification bell so that YouTube will let you know when there's a new video around. Thank you so much for your likes, your comments, and for sharing this content, and I recommend you to see these videos that you may like. Follow me on my social media that's on the screen and in the description box, and I'm off to see you next time. Bye bye!